Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and happy new year to you. In this video we're going to be doing the interactive card details form. So you can head over into frontendmentor.io/challenges and you can search for this challenge. It is one of the recent ones from the top, and then you can click on this card and then we can begin. I already downloaded the starter files, so I don't need to download them again, but most likely in your case you're going to have a download button here that says download starter, which you can click on, and it is going to take you into the challenge hub right here where you can download the starter files again if you want. And so once you download the starter files, then you're going to have a zip file that is called interactive card details form main, which I'm going to right click, and you know what, I've already extracted it right here, so I don't need to right click it. But in your case you're going to need to extract this, so just right click and say extract here, and it is going to extract into this folder. And I'm going to right click on this folder and say open with code, which is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code into this folder. And you can see that in this folder we have the design files, we have the images, we have the get-ignore, the index.html, the readmes, and the style guide. Now what I'm going to do is, using Ctrl and J, I'm going to open up my integrated terminal, and then I'm going to cd out of this. So let me just say cd backslash, and let me say cd into users, Sankara downloads. No, let me go into my desktop. So into my desktop, and then I'm going to cd into a folder on my desktop that is called YT videos, and then I'm going to say npx create react app, and then I'm going to call this application, let me say interactive dash card dash form, and then this is going to generate a React application for me. And then once it finishes, then we are going to continue. Okay, and so once that is done, I'm going to say code interactive card dash form, which is going to open up another instance of Visual Studio Code into the React application that we've just created. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this to the left, and then this is going to come to the right, so that we can do a bit of copying and pasting in between these two. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to grab the style guide, the readme template, index.html, the images, and the design, and I'm just going to say copy. And then inside my React application, I'm just going to say paste. And then inside my get-ignore, I'm going to open this up, and then I'm going to select everything. Oops, what did I do? Copy. So copy. And then inside this get-ignore in our React application, now we can place this to be full screen. We're just going to go to the bottom and then paste this in, and then change this into line 29, then change this into line 30, and then change this into line 36. And then we can save this, and then we can safely close out this second instance of VS Code. So we can just close this. And then now this is going to be our React application where we're going to be building our application, our interactive card details form. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to open this up. I want to open the design file. So let me check the desktop design. And then this is going to open up right here so that we can take a look at what we're going to be building. And this is obviously a card here and a card here. And then we have multiple inputs. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I built this out before just to test things out, just to get the UI looking like this, because it was quite difficult. And I realized that the backgrounds for this card are actually images, so we don't need to create this out in CSS. And that is how I did it. I actually did it in CSS the first time before I realized that they are actually images. So we're just going to add in images. And so therefore what I'm going to do is this: inside my source folder here, I'm going to delete the app CSS, the app test.js, the logo, report with vitals, and the setup tests. So delete them. And then inside my index.js, I'm going to remove this part because we've deleted this file, and then save it. And then inside our index.css, we're just going to remove everything. So just select everything and remove it, and then save. And then inside our app.js, we're just going to remove everything inside here. And then I'm going to say RFC because I have an extension which generates this code snippet for me. And the extension is called ES7 plus React Redux and React Native snippets, such that I can do a similar command. I can do RAFCE, which is going to create an arrow function for me, or I can do RCC, I think it is, which is going to create a class component for me. But mostly we're going to be using hooks, which means we're going to be using function components. So when you say RFC, then it's going to generate a React function component and export it as default for you. So that is just a bit of optimization. You don't need to have it, but I do recommend it because it makes programming that much faster. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to install Tailwind CSS because it's going to make our development much faster. So I'm going to open up my browser here, and then I'm going to navigate into Tailwind CSS docs. So Tailwind CSS docs installation, and then we're going to go into the framework guides, and then we're going to scroll down to create React app, and then we're going to begin with this command here. So npm install -d Tailwind CSS. So let's just go back inside here and paste it in, and then let it run, and then copy this second part and then let it run as well. So paste it in and let it run, and then we can go ahead and copy this part. So copy this line, copy, and then once the command runs, you can see that we have our Tailwind config file inside here, and this is where we're going to be pasting in that line that we've just copied. And then we're going to copy these 3 lines into our index CSS. So copy into index CSS, just paste it on top, and then now we can start our development server. But before we do that, what I want to do is I want to get the font that we're going to be using in this project, and the font is going to be inside this style guide.markdown file, and the font is called Space Grotesque, and we want the 500 font weight. So just control and click on this to open up this link. So open up this link, and there we go. So this is the font that we're going to be using, and we want the medium 500. So select medium, and then let me just say, let me go into, where is it? Where is the import? Oh, here it is. So just copy this import, which is going to be inside our CSS file. So copy this, or you can do this by the way, and you can place it inside the HTML file, but I don't like doing that. So inside my CSS, then I'm just going to go above this, and then I'm going to paste this in, remove this line, and then I'm going to specify everything to have a font family of Space Grotesque with the fallback of sans serif in case the font or this fails to load. And then let's also reset the margin. Actually, not, we're using Tailwind CSS, so we don't need to do this. So let's save this, and then now we can run our server by saying npm run start, and we should be able to see something on the screen, and we should only see app, which is rendered on the screen. So let this open up, and so there we go. So we only have app that is rendered on the screen with the React app as the title. So let's go ahead and change this title. So inside our public folder, we can go inside our index.html, and then we can change this title to say Frontend Mentor, and then I'm going to call this challenge interactive card details form, and then save it, and it should change the title inside here. And then we can close our config file, and then we can begin to create our components. And so what I'm going to do for this project is that probably, I'm still thinking about it, I might have everything to be inside the app.js, because we have this card on the left and this one as well, and then we only have a form here, and then we have a success state for it. Let me just find it. So right here we have a success state that says thank you once you have filled in the form. So I'm thinking probably this is the only one, the success state is the only one that is going to be a separate component, but we can put everything else inside the app.js. So let's go ahead and do this. Therefore, what we want to structure is we need a parent section, and the parent section is going to be everything inside here. So we need to add in this background image. By the way, this linear gradient behind is also a background image, which we're going to add in. So we need to add in this image, and then we need to have a div, which is going to be the parent for these cards as well as this form, so that we can go inside the div and then display this as a grid or as a flexbox, so that they can be displayed side by side on bigger screens as follows, and then on small screens they're going to be stacked one on top of the other. So that is the structure that I'm going to be using. So the parent section, and then the parent div for this cards, and then we're going to have articles for these cards, and then we're going to have a form. So let's go ahead and do this. Therefore, so inside this section we're going to have a background image here, just so that I don't forget. So we're going to have a background image, and then we're going to have a div, and then this div is going to have 2 articles. So copy this down. The first article is going to be the front credit card, and then the second article is going to be the back credit card. And then once we have that, then we're going to go, let me see, you know what, I'm actually doing this wrong. because this div needs to be displayed as a grid so that this part and the form display side by side. And so therefore what we need to do is this needs to be inside another div, and then outside of this div we can create another div which is going to now be our form. And okay, you know what, let me just disable these comments so that we actually see what we're going to be having as everything as our structure. And when I save this, you can see that we're going to have some text inside here. So what I mean here is if I go inside this parent div and display this, let me give it a class name of grid and grid columns 1. So grid columns 1 to begin with, because we're going to have one column on small screens, and then we're going to say that on large screens then the grid columns should be 2. Then we should be able to say 1 and the form is going to be here. So that is what we want as our structure. And then we can add in our background image, and let me just go inside the images folder, and here we have the BG main desktop and the BG main mobile. So we're going to grab these two images, we're just going to say cut them out, and then inside our source folder we're going to create a new folder called images. How did I manage to mistype that? So images, and then we're just going to paste in our two images here, and then inside my app.js I'm going to say import, let me call it BG mobile from, it's coming from /images /bg main mobile .png, and then let me just copy this down, oops, copy downwards, and then I'm going to call this bg desktop, and this is coming from bg main desktop.png. And then in order to render them out, then I'm going to place them inside a div, and then I'm going to be using a picture tag, because the picture tag is going to enable us to switch between the two images depending on the screen resolution that we have. And the picture tag is going to have a source element which takes in a media attribute, which is a media query, and we are saying that when the min width, so the minimum width of the device is 760 pixels, or you know what, let me use 1024, which is laptop size screens, then what we want to happen is we want to switch to the desktop image. Therefore the source set here, because now we are in React, remember to change this into camel case, the source set for this is going to be the bg desktop, and then the default image that is going to show up is going to be the bg mobile. And once again, what this means is that by default the mobile image is going to show, but if it detects that the screen is greater than 1024 pixels, which are laptop size screens, then the desktop image is going to show up. So let's save this and let's see whether that is working correctly. So you can see that we have our desktop image here, right? And then if I switch it to the mobile by shrinking this down less than 1024 pixels, then we should see the mobile image right around here. See that? Now this is the mobile image, and then greater than this is the desktop image, and that is what we want. Now you can create this using CSS, but this is just so much easier, don't you think? And so we're going to have that looking nice. And then what you immediately notice is that this text, or rather this card, should come on top of this card, which means that this image is going to be positioned absolute. So let's go inside this div, give this a class name of absolute, and this is going to mess up a bit because now the text comes here and the other text is behind the image. So let's give this an absolute, let's give it a -z index of about, let me say just 10 should be enough, so that now this text comes on top of this. There we go. And then we can go ahead and probably, I think, you know what, let's just build the credit cards first, the front part. So for the front credit card, what we're going to do is this. Let me see. We need to have an image. We're going to get this image and display it on the screen, and then we need to get, this is also an image, this kind of circles, which is the logo, is also an image which we need to display on top of this image, and then we need to create the text to display on top of this image. And that seems hard when you say it out loud, but it's quite easy. So let's go ahead and do this therefore. So inside this article, I'm going to give this a class name of, let me say front card. And then for front card, what we're going to do is this. We're going to go inside our index CSS. We're going to access the class that is called front card. and then we're going to give it a background image, sorry, a background of URL, and then we're going to pass in the images, and we don't yet have this image, but the image is called bg card front. So bg-card-front.png, and then let's go ahead and get these two, and not even the card logo and the icon complete. Let's just cut them out and then paste them inside our images folder, which is inside our source folder. Now please once again notice that I am serving the images, so these images are coming from the source folder. They are not outside the source folder. So if you find that the images are not displaying for some reason, then please check where you're getting the images from. So once I have this, then I save it. Then let me see what happens on the screen. We should see nothing, or rather we should see something, but this is still scrolling. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give this a height of 500 pixels and a width of, actually not, a width of 500 pixels and a height of 300 pixels, so that it is rectangular. And there we go. So you can see that we have our card here, but notice how it begins and ends here, and then begins again, but you can't really see it because it has a fixed width. If I increase this width to about 1500 pixels, then what you're going to notice is the card is repeating and repeating all the time. And then if I increase even the height to like 1300 pixels, then you see that the card is always repeating. That is not what we want, right? So the way we fix that is this. Let me reduce this so that this resets. The way we're going to fix that is we're going to give it a background size of cover. And what you're going to notice now is now it takes up the fixed width and the fixed height that we have inside here. And then I'm going to say what is the property is called background position. Background here, background position, I'm going to set it to the center because I want it to the center, and it should not change anything, or rather it does change something, but very slightly. And then now what we need to do is, let me change this back to 1300 and 1500 to show you something. And it doesn't show what I intended to show, but anyway, the next property that we need to add is the background dash repeat, and set it to no repeat, so that the background doesn't keep on repeating every single time. So the way that is going to work is this: if I disable this and this, then you notice that the background no longer repeats. If I disable this, then the background is going to be repeating. So background repeat, just make sure that the background doesn't repeat. And then background size cover, makes sure that it takes up the entire what's it called, the width and height that we have specified for it. And then the background position center just pushes it to the center properly. And then now what we need to do is this. Let me see. So we have the front card here. We need to say this. Let me go ahead and add a border radius. And the border radius for this is going to be around 30 pixels, that it is rounded on the edges. That is too much. Let me say 20 pixels, or 10, 20. And by the way, because I know someone is going to mention it in the comments, you don't have to do this in separate lines. What you can do is you can just go right here and say set the background repeat to no repeat, and then set the background position to center and / cover, and you can see that nothing changes on the screen because this one line does the same as these three lines. Okay, so that is looking nice. And then what we need to do next is, by the way, remember that this is the desktop version. So on the mobile version, you can say that this is not what we want to happen. So what we can do here is we can reduce this to about 200 maybe, and then this to about 300, just to make it smaller, maybe 320 or 40, something like that, just to make it much better visible on mobile screens. And then reduce this to about 10. And then we can add a media query, and we're going to see at media that for a min width of 1024 pixels, which are desktops or laptops, sorry, then we want the front card to have a height of 300 pixels and a width of 500 pixels, and then a border radius of 20 pixels. And then what you're going to notice is that now this is going to reset on larger screens, but on small screens, then we're going to have this one looking smaller, and that is a much better UI, you know. And then now what we need to do is we need to create this backside credit card as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that for the back dash card class, which we're going to create, then let's just go ahead and copy this and paste them inside here, and then change this into bg card. It is called back.png, and then this can remain, and then let's just copy this down. So copy it downwards, and then change this into back dash card. And because these classes are the same, so the properties defined inside here are the same as these ones, then what you can do is instead of creating that, you can just go ahead and add a comma and say dot back dash card, and that just means that these properties are going to apply for these classes that are outlined inside here. And then let's go ahead and let me save this, and then let's go inside our app.js, because nothing still happens because the class doesn't exist inside our JSX. So inside this article, we're going to give this a class name of back dash card, and then now we should see it. There we go. So that is our back credit card, and then we can remove this text. Looking nice. Now what we need to do is let's go ahead and add our logo inside here. So the logo, we're going to get the logo above this. So I'm going to say import logo from /images / it is called card-logo.svg right here. And then inside our front card, then we're going to add an image, and the image is going to say card, what do I call it? Logo. I just call it logo. So logo. So once we render the logo, let's save it. Let's see where it is going to render. Right here. Okay, so it renders right here. Let me see something. Let me go inside this article. Let me give it a padding all around of 5. Let me see where it goes. Okay, so it goes here. That is looking okay. Let me go now inside this div and give this div a class name of, let's see, how is it going to look on mobile? It should be downwards and inwards on mobile. So let me say margin top of 10, margin top of 10, and margin on the x-axis of 5. Let me see. Okay, that's looking okay. So we have our logo here, and then on mobile, actually not, I think we should build itself for mobile first, otherwise we're going to have issues. But we can scale it up or down depending on our needs. So let's just have this. So this is our logo, and then the way it looks is that the logo is here, and then the inputs are going to be on the bottom. So for now, we're going to hard code this in, but when we create our state in our form, then it's going to be dynamic depending on what we type in. So let's go ahead and do this. Therefore, let's go below this image. Let's create another div, and then inside this div, we're going to have an h2, which is just going to say like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 1 2, or 9 0 1 2 3 4 5 6. There we go. So that is going to be the credit card number, which should render here. And then below this h2, we're going to have, let me see how this is. We need to have render the name, and then we need to render the expiry date. So let's go ahead and say, let's create a UL maybe. And then the first list item here is just going to say, let me just say my name for now. And then the second list item is going to say like the, whatever it's called, the CVC or CVV, depending on where you're from. And then, actually, is that the CVC? No, that is the date. This should be the expiry date. So let's say 00/00. And then let's save this, and then let's see where it's going to render. So it's here, and then let's style it out. So inside this div, and not even inside the div, but inside this article, we're going to say display this article as a flexbox. Should that do it? And then let's say flex-color. Okay, and then let's say align item center. Oops, items-center. There we go. And then actually not item center should it be there. It should be justify dash between, that this goes here. Okay, let's reduce the size of the image. Let's give this image a class name of width -10. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So let's say with 20 to increase it a bit, with 28. Okay, there we go. And by the reason why this works, the reason why the image is on the top and the text is on the bottom, is because this card has a fixed height. So if I go and remove the fixed height from the front card here, let me remove it. Actually, let me remove it from here. If I remove it from here, look what happens. Okay, it is now embarrassing me. Oh, you know what? It happens because it's still here. So there you go. So, what? It still doesn't work? Okay, it's still embarrassing me, so let me just forget I mentioned that. But usually the reason why this is going to be remain on the top and then the text is going to be on the bottom is because of the height of the image. So if the image didn't have a fixed height, then the text would come here on the bottom. So let's have it as that. And then, you know what? Let me see. Let me say width 20, and then for large screens, then width dash 28. 28. So on small screens, then the width is going to be 20 for this image, and then on large screens, then it's going to scale up to width 28. And then let's go inside this div, and then inside this div, we're going to give this a class name of flex, which is going to take this to the end. Is that the correct div? That is the wrong div. That is the wrong div. I should be inside the UL. So inside the UL, give this a class name of flex. We should place the name and this side by side. And then I'm going to say items as center and justify dash between. I can't type. I got between. There we go. So that this goes to the end. And once again, the reason why this doesn't go to the end here is because it is positioned inside this card, which has a fixed width of 500 pixels. I remember 500 pixels. That's why. So if you were to go and increase the width of this, then it would still go all the way to the end of the width of the width that you have defined. So let's go inside this h2. Let's give this h2 a class name of text white and font bold. Actually not, it only has one font weight, so it doesn't matter. Let's just say text dash 2xl and margin bottom of about 6 to push away from this text here. There we go. And then let's say tracking dash widest to increase the letter spacing between these. There we go. That's looking nice. And then let's go ahead and increase this as well. So inside this list item, let's give this a class name of, let's say, text dash white, and then uppercase, because credit cards don't have lowercase letters here for your name. And then let's say text dash XL for small screens, and then for large screens, let's say text dash 2XL. Actually, is that a good idea? Because now this text is the same as this one. I don't want that to happen, so let me just have it as text XL. Let me see how small that is. That should be fine. And then let's say tracking dash widest as well to increase the letter spacing between the name. And then let's go ahead and do the same for this. And you know, let's just copy these class names. Oops, copy, and then paste them inside here. And we don't need this uppercase because these are always going to be numbers. So let's see, tracking widest. That should be fine. That should be fine, yeah. And there we go. So that is our front-facing credit card. And then now what we need to do is, okay, this looks a bit small for me. It's looking a bit small. Let me make it, let's say that for large screens, then make it text dash 4XL. How big is that? Okay, too big. Let's say 3XL. Okay, let's just have it at that. And then now let's go ahead and build this backward. And for the background, all you need to do is just render the CVC here. So let's go ahead and say for the back article, let's go ahead and let me have it as a paragraph really. Let's just say 1 to 3 to see what's going to render. It's going to render here. And then what we need to do is we need to position this here. So we're going to say, give this a class name of absolute, which is going to bring it here or somewhere or nowhere, or it still remains here. But if I say bring it to the top by 0, then it's going to bring it on top here, right here. You can't really see it because it is blacked out. But we want to position it absolute within this card. So what we're going to do is, inside this article, we're going to give this a class of relative, which means it's going to be positioned relative to this card. And then we're going to say now, instead of top 0, then we're going to say bring it to the right by 0. And it's not going to really be to the right because we want to move it inwards a bit. So let me say bring it to the right by 5 because I had a padding of 5 all around. Remember, we added a padding of 5 on the article here, so padding of 5 all around. So just to keep it uniform so that it is aligned on the same. And then we are probably going to play around with this quite a bit. So let me see. So right of 5, let's say top of around 28. How much is that? Should be here, top of 28, top of 32. Okay, and then let's say text dash XL, make it bigger. And then let's say text dash slate dash, let me say about 600. How does it look? Oh, wait a minute. It's white in color. What am I doing? It's white, so text white. Text white. And then let's check it out. There we go. And then let's say tracking dash widest to increase the letter spacing between the numbers. And then widest, not widest. Widest. There we go. And then to bring it inwards a bit more, let's say right of about 8. To bring it right around here, let's say right of 10. Right there. And then let's say top of 36. But this is too much because now it's too much on the bottom. See that? And the reason why we can't really get it to look all that well is because Tailwind doesn't have like classes like 33. It has 32 and then 36. I don't know whether they added more. So it has 32 and then 36. So if we wanted to get, if we want to get it like absolutely here, then we have to use our own CSS. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's just go inside and our CSS and say that for the dot backcard, let's access the paragraph and say bring it to the top by, let me say, how much is 32 pixels? 9 rem. Let's say, wait a minute, let me just check how 9 rem is. Okay, 9 rem. Let's say 8 rem. Let's say 8.5. Let's say 8.4.3. There we go. You can see that. So just a matter of playing around with it. But then remember that this is desktop. So if you switch it back to the mobile, look where it is. See that? So we need to play around with this for mobile as well. And you know, let's just do that right away because I don't want to do it later when I'm feeling a bit tired. So here, let's take this back to 4 rems to see what it's going to be. So 5 rem. So let's say 5 point, you know what? Let me reduce the size of this. Let me say this is going to be text large on small screens. And then for large screens, then text XL. And then let's go back and play around with this to about 5.4 rem or 5.3 rem, 5.2 rem. That should be fine. That should be fine. And then when we bring this upwards right around here, that's when we need to reset it. So we're going to go back, we're going to go to the bottom of this media query and say that for the backcard paragraph, then we want to bring it to the top by 8.3 rem. I think that is what we had, not 83, but 8.3. That's what we had here. There we go. That's looking nice. And you don't notice something else when we scale this down. Look at this. We don't want this to happen, right? So what we're going to do therefore is this. We're going to go inside our app.js. And then for this, we're going to scale this down a bit. Let's say text dash large to make it smaller so that it fits on this line, you know. So if this is text large, let me see how text XL looks like. Text XL should be fine. And then what we're going to do is then we need to reduce the size of this as well for the name. So here, let me just say text dash base, and then for large screens, then text dash XL. So that we're going to have that. And then just copy this part. And then we're going to paste it here as well, so that it resets for this one as well. That's looking much, much better on small screens. Now, I do realize that I haven't fixed this yet, but we're going to do that. So now let's do this. Let's go ahead and separate out these cards. So we're going to say that, let me see, this is inside this div. So it is this article. So separate them out here. So inside this div, I'm going to display this div as a grid. And that is going to happen. So let's say grid columns -1 with a gap of 8 to separate them out here. There we go. And then what we're going to do is for this article, and you know what, this class of grid should only apply on large screens. So let's say that for large screens, And the reason why I don't want it to apply on smaller screens is because it's going to mess up on smaller screens if we're going to be studying this out for large screens first of all, as we are doing. And then what we need to do is we need to push this inwards just a bit. So the second card needs to push in inwards a bit. So this second article, we're going to say that for large screens, then let's say margin on the left to be 20. That is too much actually. Or maybe it's fine. Let me see. Yeah, it should be fine. 20 is fine. You see how it looks? So 20 is fine. And then now I want to go back into the parent div. So this parent div, actually this one here, which has the grid. And then we're going to say, give this a class of about, let's say max width -7XL. And then an MX of auto. So that everything doesn't push all the way to the end. So that we're going to have that. So that now it is like it's going to be what is it? What is the word? I'm forgetting the word for this, but so that it doesn't go all the way to the end. It doesn't go all the way to the end on large screen, so that it is just a bit limited. And then now what we need to do is get this form and bring it here. So let's go ahead and build out this form. So for the form, we're going to build out a form with no action, and then we're going to have an input. I know, let me have a div, and then inside this div we're going to have a label, because each of these has a label. So the card holder name, label for card holder underscore name, and then let me just call this card holder name. Should I use underscores? I don't know. I don't like using underscores when I'm naming these things. Let's create an input with a type of text with a name of card holder underscore name with an ID of card holder underscore name, so that this label is going to be tied to this input with a placeholder that says e.g. Jane Appleseed, and then we're going to set it to required. And then once we have that, let me save it. Let's see what I have on the screen. We should have this on the screen. So now what we need to do is let's go inside this div, and then let me go ahead and style this out, because I just want to style it out for this begin div to begin with, and then we're just going to do copying and pasting for the rest of them. So inside our index CSS, I'm going to go below this, right before the media query, and I'm going to say that for the form and then for the labels, then I want all the labels to be displayed as a block element, so that they go on each one on its own line. And then for the block, you know what, let me just use tail and CSS. Let me say at apply block, and then uppercase, and then tracking dash wider, and then let's say text dash slate dash 800. Let me say margin bottom of 2 to separate them out from the inputs just a bit, and then let's say text dash small. There we go. And then once we have that, then let's go inside the form and let's get the inputs. So all the inputs, we're going to say at apply, and we're going to apply a border with a border slate of about 800 with a padding on the y of 2 or of 3 and padding on the x of 4 with a rounded border. And then let me see what else we need to do. Let me say outline dash none, because I don't want an outline. And then let me say, let's save this actually. Let's see what I have. So we're going to have that. Okay. And then not, let me say width dash full. There we go. Now let me just check this. How does it look? Okay, this is much lighter. So instead of saying the border to be slate 800, let's say slate 400, just to make it, or 200 maybe, 300. And then let's make it border dash 2 to make it a bit thicker. There we go. So border 2, and then that is going to be the first input. And then let me see how this is aligned. So the card holder name and then the card number. So let's go ahead and just copy and paste this div. What is wrong here? Could not find name label. Really? That is just an issue with its own thing. Let's create another div here with the label. The label for this is now going to say, let's say Control D to select these other ones, and this is going to say card underscore number, and then this is going to say card number, and then this is going to be an input with the type of text with the name of card number, ID card number, and then EG is going to say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0 1 2. Oh, what did I do? 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0 1 2 3 4 5 6. There we go. And then set it to required as well. So let's save this, and it should appear somewhere here. There we go. So that is our card number. And then next we need to have our expiry date and CVC, and see how these are all aligned in one line. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to have a div. So just copy this div, let me say 2 more times, and then these 2 divs, we're going to cut them out and place them inside an article, so that in this article then we can display them side by side. So the HTML4 for this is going to say, let me just say expiry underscore date, and then copy this and paste it here and here, and then this is going to say what? It should say something like month here. So let me see, placeholder month, oops, month, and then year. And then let me say the input type here is going to be month. Okay, so input type month, and then this is going to say expiry date. Is that what it's called? Expiry date month here, expiry date month / here. There we go. And then this is going to say CVC. So CVC, the HTML4, let's just say Control D and let's say CVC. The input type here is going to be number, and then EG is going to say EG 123, 123. And then the CVC needs to have a max length because it can't be greater than 3 digits. So here we're going to say give this a max length of 3. And then, by the way, I forgot, this also needs to have a max length. So the max length for this is going to be 19. And so why is it 19? Because the input, the credit card number needs to be 16 digits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. But it needs to have these spaces in between. And these spaces are also going to count towards the maximum number of digits. So we have 16 digits as our credit card, and then 17, 18, 19 for the spaces. That's why the max length here is going to be 19. So let's save this, and then let's see what we have on the screen, and we're going to have that. Now what we need to do is we need to, and by the way, I realize that you have noticed that the expiry date here is different from how it is rendered inside here, but that's okay. We're just going to use this. So what we're going to do now is inside this form, we're going to go inside the form that is here, and what we're going to do is display this form as a grid with grid columns -1 with a gap of about, let me say 6 probably, to separate out the inputs and the labels. Let me say 8 maybe. And then let's go inside this div that has these two. So the div, actually it's not a div, it's an article, sorry. And then we're going to give this article a class name of flex, which is going to place them side by side. There we go. And then I'm going to say, let's say item-center and justify-between, and then let's give it a gap of, let's just say gap of 8 maybe. And then what we need to do is inside this div we need to give this a class name of flex-1, so that it takes up like 50% of that. And then inside the second div, so inside this one as well, flex-1, so that they take up equal parts. Okay, that's looking nice. And then we need to get this card, or rather this form, and push it downwards to the center so that it is perfectly centered. So what we're going to do is this. Let me see, can you do that using grid, or should I switch to flexbox? Let me say h-screen. Let me see. Yeah, it does that. So you know what, let me use flexbox. Let me say display this as a flexbox so that happens. And then let's say flex-column, and then let me say justify-center. Okay, let me say item center. Let me see, I hope nothing changes. I didn't want that to change. And then let me say h-screen. What happens? So it moves here, but it also messes up with this. See how it messes up with this also? I didn't want that to happen. Should I or should I not? Let me see, let's remove item center here. Okay, there we go. So item center fixes that. And then let's add a gap of 8, gap-8, to separate out the inputs. There we go. And then inside the form, let's give this form a max width of about 3XL, so that these inputs aren't so big. Okay, let's say max width -large, yeah, so that the inputs aren't so big, and we're going to have that. And then now let me see, like the space has increased here because of the H screen that is here. So if I remove it, then see how the space shrinks downwards. So let me say h-screen here, and then let's go back to where, remember we displayed this card and this card as a grid, and we added a gap of 8. Where is it? Front card here. So let's move this gap. Let me see if that helps. It doesn't really help all that much, but you can see that it's looking a bit better, you know, just a bit better. Now let's go ahead and do this. Let me check the design. So card holder name. Now we need our submit button. So below this, so below our form, which is right here, we're going to go below this article and give it a button with a type of submit that is going to say confirm. Let's see where it goes. There we go. So it is here. And then for this button, let me just go ahead and style it out in our index CSS. So for the form button, we need to get the background color for it, and the background color is going to be inside our style guide. So our style guide is going to be, where is it? Input errors, white, light bluish, very dark violet. Copy this and paste it here. Is that the one? That should be the one. Form button. The form button is not responding to the background color. Form button. Did I do something wrong? Form button, background color. Let's say at apply bg red 500. Nothing. What? Let's go here. Give this a class name of bg red 500. So for the form button here, something is wrong. For the form, let me just give this a class name of btn to make it easier. So btn and then form dot btn. There we go. And then we can move this so this background color applies. And then let's use tailoring. Let's say at apply padding y of 3, padding x of 6. We don't need to have a padding of the x-axis anyways. Let's give it a rounded, and then let's give it a slight box shadow. Let's say text white, and then let's say text beige. There we go. And then let's say tracking dash wide, just to increase the letter spacing a bit. Let me see. Let's go ahead and say that for large screens, then the text should be large to make it a bit bigger. There we go. So this is going to be our submit button, and you can see that we can't submit this form unless all of these are filled. And then now what we need to do is we need to create our thank you component. So for our thank you component, let me see how we're going to do this. Let's go ahead below this. Let's go ahead and create a component here. Let me just say function thank you, and then we're going to return, and let's just return a fragment with an h1 that says thank you, and then a paragraph below it is going to say, let's see the text. Where is the text? We've added your card details. So we've added card details, and then below this we're going to have a button with a class name of btn once again that says continue. Now because I want this class to apply on this button as well, then inside our index CSS we're going to remove this part, meaning now these classes are going to apply for everything that has a class of btn. So save it, and then let's go ahead and also, you know what, before you save this, we need to add this top image, this one, this tick. So above this we're going to have an image, and I'm just going to call this image tick, so for the source, and then let's import it on top. Let's say import not. Let me just copy this downwards, change this to tick, and this should be icon complete.svg. So the image is called icon-complete.svg. And then let's go ahead and now render this component, and we're going to be rendering it, let's see, inside this div. Where is this div? Oh, you know what I've just realized? Probably the H screens should come on this div, and that should maybe fix this spacing. I'm not sure about that, but we can just try it out. So let's go below this form, and then below this form we're going to render our thank you component, which we have just created here. And then now it should break things a bit, so it should have our thank you here. And now this thank you should only be visible when we have clicked this confirm button. So we're going to deal with this in a moment. Now let me just try out what I was thinking. Let me go here. Let me see. Cut out these class names. Oops. Cut them out and paste them here. We can remove the gap. Let's save it. Let me see what happens. Okay. That is not what I want to happen. Let's disable this for a moment. Okay. Hmm. Doesn't seem to change anything. Doesn't seem to change anything. So let me just undo this, undo, and bring the classes back here, because nothing seems to change anyways, except that this now goes here. And what is wrong here? Oh, it's because of this. Okay, it's because of this. So now let's go ahead and do this. Therefore, let's go ahead and style this out. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to select this entire form and then just comment it out so that we can't see it for now. And then this is going to be here. And then for the thank you, what I'm going to say is this. I'm going to go inside this image, give this image a class name of block and mx auto, that is going to be centered. And then inside this h1, I'm going to give this h1 a class name of text slate 800 and text dash, let me say 3xl, and margin bottom of about maybe 6. Separate out from this, and let me see how it looks. It is capitalized. So thank you with an exclamation mark, and let's say uppercase. And then inside this paragraph, we're going to give this a class name of text slate dash 400, and then let's say text dash center. Bring it to the center. Okay. And you know what, this text also needs to be centered. So here, let's say text dash center as well. Bring it here. And let me change this to margin Y so that it adds a margin on the top and bottom. And then for the continue button here, let's go ahead and say give this a class name of let me say text center. This is not going to work actually. Yeah, it's not going to work because this needs to be a block element, and then let's say mx auto, and then now it's going to be centered, and then margin top of about 10, pushed out from paragraph. And then let's go ahead and grab this entire thing, place it inside a div. And then inside this div, let me give it a class name of flex, and it's going to break things. There we go. And then say flex dash column. Okay. And then item center, and justify dash center, which will bring it. Actually, it doesn't do anything because it needs to have a fixed height. So each screen is going to bring it here. There we go. So this is our thank you component. And then when you click on this, I'm probably just going to bring you back to the form anyways. And then let me see, why isn't this button full width dash full? Why isn't it full width? Okay, there we go. That is actually full width. And then just to limit it, because I don't want it to be so big, then I'm going to give this a max width of large as well. Let me see what happens. And then let's say mx auto to center it. There we go, looking nice. And then now what we need to do is this. The first thing actually that I'm going to do is I'm going to create the toggle for this. So in order to create the toggle, let's go ahead and disable, or rather enable our form, which is going to do this. It's going to break things quite a bit. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go on top, and then I'm going to import use state. So use state from React, and then I'm going to create a state value here that is called confirmed and set confirmed. And then this is going to be a boolean, so by default it's going to be false because we don't want our confirmed state to show by default. And then what we're going to do is inside the thank you here, we're going to cut it out. I don't really not cut it out, but just add our curly brackets and then add our conditional render, and then we're going to say that only when confirmed is true, that's when we want our thank you to appear, so that when I save this, then it's going to disappear. There we go. So you can see that now it disappears. And the way we're going to be toggling this to true is by clicking on this button. So we're going to remove this type of submit from here, and then we're going to add an on click, and then we're going to pass in our inline function, and then we're going to say set confirmed into true, so that when I save this, then now this is still going to break, but when I click on this button, you can see that now our thank you component is going to show up. And I want to do the opposite when I click on this continue button. So let me just copy this part, copy, and then paste it here, and then I'm going to say set confirmed into false. But this is going to break because it's going to tell you something like set confirmed is not defined. That is because even though this component is still in the app.js, it doesn't know where this set confirmed is coming from. So what we need to do is we need to pass in these two state values, or rather maybe this function only, as a prop inside our component. So we're going to say set confirmed prop is equal to the set confirmed state value, rather the function, and then we can destruct it inside here and say set confirmed. And then now when I save this, then it should be able to, when I click on this, then it should disappear. So there we go. And then what want to happen is when set confirmed is true, then we want this form to disappear so that this is not on the bottom except it is here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let me see. We're going to grab this entire form all the way. Where's the form? Here. And then we're going to cut it out. And then we're going to say when not confirmed. When not confirmed is true, that's when we want our form to render. You see that? So let's save this and then let's go ahead and try it out. So see that not confirmed is now, like set confirmed is set to true. So our thank you state is showing. And then when I click on this, then our form shows, right? That's looking nice. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to create the state values for this, so that now when we type something in, then it is going to be dependent on what we type in inside here instead of hard-coded as we have done it. And so therefore what I'm going to do is this. We're going to create a few more state values. So we're going to say const, let me say this is the name and set name. This is going to be equal to use state. By default is going to be an empty string. And then the second one is going to be number, or let me call it card number to be a bit more descriptive, and set card number. This is going to be equal to use state, and by default it's going to be an empty string. And then we need the expiry date. So const date and set date is going to be equal to use state. By default, we're just going to say, let me say what? This is just going to be an empty string. And then we need the CVC as well. So const CVC and set CVC is going to be equal to use state. By default, it's going to be an empty string. And so what we need to do now is we need to change these inputs into controlled inputs, so that when we type in something inside here, then it's going to reflect here. So the way we do that is by adding a value to the input, and the value for this one, because it is the card holder name, we're going to tie it into the name state value that we have just created here. And then the way you turn it into a controlled input is by having an onChange handler on it. And we're going to access the synthetic event of e, and then we're going to say set name into e.target.value. And this means populate our state value with whatever we type in, and whatever we type in is gotten by e.target.value. So I'm going to save this, and you would think that when I type in something, then oops, there we go. So you would think that when I type in something, then it should reflect here, but it doesn't. And the reason why it doesn't is because this is hard coded. So we need to change this to be dynamic. So right on top where we have our name, so instead of rendering this, then we need to render our name state value. So let's save this, and you can see that now it's going to disappear, or rather it doesn't disappear because this is already filled in. So if I remove it, you can see that nothing is being shown here. But if I type in my name, then it types in my name, meaning now it is a controlled input being controlled by React's state. And once we do that, then we're just going to do the same for every other input that we have inside here. So this is going to be dependent on the date, and then this is going to be dependent on the card number. So card number, and then what else? It's only those three. Actually, the CVC is also here. So this is going to be dependent on the CVC. And then what we need to do is I'm just going to copy this down because it's going to be a bit of copying and pasting. So paste it inside here, change this into card number, and then change this into set card number. There we go. And then change this, let me paste it here, change this into date, change this into set date, and then change this, let's paste it in, change this into CVC, and then change this into set CVC, and then save it. And then nothing should break, except that now nothing happens, nothing shows on the screen, sorry, because nothing is being filled in here. So let's try to fill it in. Let's say add in my name, let's just add in a bunch of numbers here. And you can see that the max input is 19. And now you're wondering, why isn't it showing any spaces? We're going to fix that in a moment. The expiry date, let me just select it to this. You can see that now it shows this, which is wrongly formatted. And then let's just have 123 here, and you can see that the CVC appears here as 123. And then when I confirm it, it says we have added your card details. And then when I click on continue, then it takes us back to this form. So let's go ahead and fix this. And so the way we fix the format for the card numbers here is I googled this and I can't remember it well. So I'm going to be looking where I wrote it down. So we're going to do this inside the card number, which is here. So inside the card number dot value, we're going to say card number dot replace, and then we're going to say replace. Let's see, what does it say? // and then s. Actually, is that correct? Dot replace. Where is it? Card number dot replace // x / there we go, and then g comma and then an empty string, and then outside of this we're going to say dot replace again, dot replace, and then we're going to say replace / bracket \d and then curly brackets 4, and then let's go outside of this, and then we're going to say /g and then comma and say let's say $1 and then space, and then we're going to go outside of this and say dot trim. There we go. And so this is what is going to enable us to have our properly formatted credit card number. And what I recommend you do is go to the repository that is linked in the description so that you don't have an error here, and then you can just go ahead and copy and paste this part. So now when I save this, now look at this, and it actually is already formatted on the input part. We're going to remove this, and if I say 1 2 3 4 and then 5 6 7 8, you can see that now it is formatting properly, and it is now formatting in the form of a credit card number. So that is looking quite nice. And then now the final thing that we need to do is we just need to format this date correctly, and the way we're going to do that is by using date FNS. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, where is our date here? So we're going to say format. Now you're wondering where is format coming from. It's coming from date FNS, but we haven't installed date FNS yet, so we're going to install it in a moment. So we're going to say format new date, and then we're going to pass in the date, which is our state value, and then we're going to say format it in the form of month and then year, so that it's going to show the month here and then the year. So before we save this, this is format, not form data format. Let's go ahead and import format. So we're going to say import format from date-fns, and then let's open up our terminal. Let's add another terminal here and say npm install date-fns, which is going to install this method that we have inside here, which we've just implemented. And then once that finishes installing, then we can save this and take a look at our application. And then actually let's just reload it to make sure. Okay, something is wrong. Okay, there it goes. So it says something should be wrong here. Occurred in the app component, invalid time value. So probably we need to pass in a fixed date here. So let me say what? It's month and then year. Let's say 01/23. That should do it. Okay, 01/01. Is that correct? Let's try it out. 02/23. Okay, and then yeah, that's looking okay. That is looking okay. So that is not properly formatted, but I think I need to have a / here. Does this support it? /? Okay, reload it to make sure that nothing breaks. Okay, 01/01, and that is looking okay. That is looking okay. Okay, fantastic. And then we can fill this in once again, and then let's just say random number here. And by the way, in case you're wondering, even if you fill this in small letters, the way we style it out in our CSS is it's always going to show capital letters here, because we have the class of uppercase in our CSS. And there we go. Would you look at that? That is quite a nice looking credit card form. But then I've just remembered that it is looking horrible on mobile. I've just remembered that. So let's go ahead and style it out on mobile. Let's fix everything on mobile. And we fix it by going inside this image here and giving this image a class name of width dash full. So class name equals to width dash full, that it goes all the way to the end here, or not. Why doesn't, oh, because this is absolute, so this needs to be width dash full as well. But that is going to mess up with the bigger version, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Oh my god, oh my god. So the way we fix that now is by saying this. On large screens, then the width should be, let's say, a third. Should fix it. There we go. So that the width of this bigger image on bigger screens is always going to be a third. So that is looking nice, nice, nice. And then let's continue to fix it on mobile. So on mobile, we're going to say this. On mobile, we don't want to have this height of screen here. So let's fix that where we have height of screen somewhere. Where is it? Here. So we're going to say that this is only going to apply on large screens. And then let's go also to the bottom and say that this is only going to apply on large screens. And then that should fix this spacing. There we go. There we go. Nice, nice, nice. And then I've just realized that probably what we should have done on this, on the front and back here, where is it? Here is the width. We should not have given a fixed width here, so that it's always going to be 100% of this. And then this one as well, we can remove it, so that now it's always going to be 100. But probably we can increase the height because this height is a bit too small. So Control D to select both of them. And then let's say 250 pixels. 230. Let's have 230. And then what we're going to do next is this. Let's see. We need this to push inwards on the form. This is looking horrible. So on the, let's say on the parent div, so this div, we're going to give this a class name and say give it a padding all around of 5 to push everything inwards and downwards. There we go. You know what? Let me say this. Padding Y. Let's say padding top of 8. Let's say padding on the x-axis of 5. Let's say padding bottom of maybe 20, so that we have a bit of leeway to scroll on the bottom here. So we're going to have that. Okay, looking nice, nice, nice. Looking nice, nice, nice. And then the confirm doesn't mess up anything. That's looking okay as well. And then what we need to do is, oops, something's wrong here. Something is wrong. We're going to fix that in a moment. So what we need to do is we need to have the gap here. Why did I remove the gap? Oh, it's because the H of screen was messing up with something. So let's go ahead and let's add it in again. Where is it? Is this div here? So let's say, then this means that this class should apply on mobile screens. Okay, so save this. Let me see what happens. Nothing changes. And then let's give it a gap of 8 to separate it out. Gap of 8 looks a bit too big. Let's say gap of 4, perhaps. And then we're going to say that for large screens, then the gap should be 0. So on large screens, it's not going to have a gap, which is barely visible anyway. And then on small screens, it's going to be like this. And then let's check it out. Oh my goodness. So the UI on mobile is changed up. That is going to be a pain. It's going to be such a pain. Okay, let's go ahead and do this therefore. So this means that, notice how now this doesn't go all the way to the end. So that means that we need to add a fixed width to each of these cards. So let's go ahead and let's enable this. Let's set this to about maybe, wait, how much was 320? All of it? We can have it as that actually, 320, and then enable this to be 320 as well. And then this needs to come on top. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There's going to be an issue. Let me remove these comments. They're quite distracting. Okay. So that means then we need to remove this gap first of all. So we don't need to have this. Where's the gap? This one. We don't need to have this gap here, which means that this class is now irrelevant. And then let's see, how do I do this? We're going to be playing around with absolute positioning, but let me fix this first because it is bothering me. And it should be the back card paragraph. So here, let's say 5rem, let's say 5.4rem. Okay, let's say 6rem. 6.2, 6.1, 6.15. That should do it. And I hope this doesn't mess up with the larger version. Okay, it doesn't. Okay. Now what I need to do is I also want to increase the height of this background image. Let me see. Probably, maybe, or maybe not. Let's just deal with this first of all. So what we need to happen is the back card needs to come here. So therefore we need to position it absolute. So position absolute. Okay. And then we need to bring it to the right by 0. Okay, let's say right by 32 pixels, or maybe by 20 pixels. Okay. And then the front card also needs to be positioned absolute. So position absolute. Okay. And then we need to bring it to the top by, let's say, 100 pixels. Let's say 150 pixels. Let's say 180, because this needs to be on top here. How is it? Yeah, just like above this line maybe. And then let's give it a z index of, let's say, 20 to place it on top of this. Okay, that's looking okay. And then we need the form to come downwards. So we need the form to have a margin top of, let's say what, 300 pixels, almost 350 pixels. 350 pixels looks okay. And then what we need to do is we need to reset those classes on what is happening here. What is happening here? We need to reset the classes. This means we need to have another media query. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Just getting the responsiveness is the annoying part of this. So what I need to do is we need to disable the absolute positioning for this on large screens. So what I'm going to say is, right, let me see above here, then position relative. That should fix some of it, actually all of it. Position relative. And then what else we need to do? We need the form to not have a margin top. Okay, so the form should not have a margin top, so it has pushed downwards. So right around below this, the form should have a margin top of 0. That should fix it. Okay. And then this needs to have, I pushed it downwards. Where is it? Front. I pushed it from the top by 180 pixels. So here the front card, so let me go below this actually. The dot front card should be on the top by 0. We should bring it here. Okay. And then this one is what? It is placed to the right. Where is it? Back card right by 20 pixels. So the back card here, the dot back card, should be placed to the right by 0. Bring it properly. Okay. And then probably I should push this downwards so that this space is reduced. So let's say top by, let me say about 50 pixels. Yeah, I think we can work with that. So 50 pixels looking nice. And then now what we need to fix, let me see here. Okay, we also need to fix the thank you component. So inside the app.js, let's go ahead inside the thank you, which is this one. And let's say that by default have it a margin top of what, 52. Bring it downwards. Almost. Let's say 80, because we need to be able to see the tick as well. There we go. Let's say 96. That's too much. 90. Oh, it doesn't have 90. What? Which one does it have? Oh, it doesn't have 90. Oh, does it have 80 something? Let's see. It doesn't have. Oh my goodness, Tailwind, why do you do this? So let's have it as that. And then what you need to say is for large screens, then the margin top should be 0. So this is how it looks on small screens, and then on large screens, then it's just going to reset. There we go. And then now we need to fix this on tablets. On tablets, we need to fix this. And the way I'm thinking to fix this is by beginning, instead of this applying on large screens, it should apply on tablet side screens here. Let me see, can we do that? Let's go back on top. Let's say that this should say 760 pixels for the background image. First of all, that should fix it. And then here, it should say for medium screens, which does that. Okay, and then we're going to say that the height should be full, so it goes all the way to the bottom, or not. Let's move it, and then let's go ahead and say where is it? Where did I have the large class here? Large 28. I need, oh, it's in the index CSS. So this should now say 760 pixels, so that these ones can begin to display here. Okay, messes up with everything. Where's the thank you? The thank you is here. So the H of screen is still applying somewhere. So the H of screen, let's find it. H dash screen. So this should now apply on medium, should be it. And then let's find the second one. The second one is here. So let's say medium screens. How does that look? Oops, messed it up even further. Okay, so this is still being positioned absolute. This one and this one are still being positioned absolute. So how do you fix that? We fix that first of all by changing this back. Let's say Control Z to change it back to large. Save it. And then let's figure out this margin top. Oh, it has a margin top of 80. Margin top of 80 that I added here. Where is it? Here. So this should now say medium screens. That this moves back there. There we go. And then let's check this out whether it doesn't mess up with anything. Okay. And then let's also go ahead and how do I want to do this actually? I'm just realizing that on medium screens, probably I still want this to be here and then this to be here. So what we can do is we can go ahead and remove this from here, cut it out, and then when I save this, then it should come here still. Oops, it doesn't. Where have I messed up? This is really annoying. It is really annoying. So these ones, let me cut this out and then let me apply them. So let me add our media query here for a min width of 1024 pixels. Then this should apply. Okay, and then now what is happening? Why? Let me see. Thank you. Okay, so right at around here, I want this to come here. This one to come here still. Why doesn't it apply there? Because of position relative. Oh yeah, that's the reason why. Position relative, let's save it. Let's see what happens. There we go. So position relative here, let's say that for the dot front card and for the dot back card, then position relative should be applied on large screens. And then this thank you is now behind. Oh my goodness, the thank you is now behind, which means that we need our margins to still apply here. So for the form here, oops, so for this form here, we can remove it from here and it should apply on large screens. Okay, so here it changes nothing. And then, oops, something's wrong right here. Something is wrong. Where's our form? Margin top 350. Let's say margin top 400. Or you know what? Let's have it as 350 here. And then on medium screens, let's say that for the form, the margin dash top should be 400 pixels. Okay. And I do realize that this is not the kind of video you were expecting to see when you clicked on it, but I do apologize. This is what programming is like. Okay, so we have that 400, let's say 450, pushed even downwards. let's say 480, pushed even downwards. Let's say 500, pushed even downwards. 500 pixels, and then on large screens it should reset because we have margin top 0 for large screens. And then let's say where's our thank you component? Let's see how it looks. So our thank you component is here. So for the thank you, let's go ahead and do this. Let's remove this margin from here, and then let's add a custom class here called thank-u, so that I can go inside our form here and add a dot thank you class on it, so that the thank you also gets the styles of the margin. And then I can just do the same. You know what, I can just copy, you know what, I can copy this part and then paste it here as well for medium screens, and then paste it here as well so that it resets on large screens. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's looking much better. Not my best looking project, but it does the job. So there we go. Now what is left is we need to deploy this to GitHub and to Netlify for our hosting, and then we need to submit it. So let's close these pages. Let's open up GitHub. Let's open up Netlify. And then on GitHub, let's go ahead and create a new repository. And this new repository is going to be called, let me call it what? Let's say interactive card details form. And then let's say create repository. And then copy this. And then let's go ahead and say Control J. And then let me see. Let's go ahead and shut down our terminal. And then let's say git init. Okay. And then let's say git add all to add everything. And then git commit, let's say initial, let me just say project complete. And then let's say git remote add origin, and then paste in our link. And then git push -u origin main to push it to our remote repository, and then just give it a moment. As it is pushing, then let's go ahead and log into Netlify with GitHub, and then we're going to say add a new site, so import an existing project from GitHub, and then it is called interactive card details form. So let's search for interactive card details form. Let's search. It should have already deployed to GitHub. There we go. So we can close this, and we can actually close this as well. And then let's deploy this. So searching, and then npm build, that's looking okay. So deploy site, and if I reload our GitHub page, then we should see our repository right there, looking fantastic. So let's have this open for a moment, and then let's change the site name here. So change site name into TsbSankara. Let's call it interactive card form. Does details, okay, it won't be enough. So interactive card form. So let's save this, and then as it is deploying, let's just check the deploys here. Okay, that should finish it deployed. Let's visit this to see what we have, and there we go. So we have that looking fantastic. So let's copy this link, and then let's go back into Frontend meta. Let's say submit solution, and then we're going to say repository URL. No, the live set URL is going to be this one. The repository URL is going to be this one. Solution title, I'm going to say mobile. Okay, it's not really mobile first. We didn't build it mobile first this time. So let's say interactive card details form using React.js and Tailwind CSS. And then we can say submit solution. And then we're going to wait a moment. And there we go. So my solution is here, and then let's see whether we can compare. So we have the solution is the one on this one, which has not yet loaded. Why hasn't our solution loaded, by the way? Reload. Why isn't our solution loading? Is this working? It's working, but our solution isn't loading for some reason. Okay, anyways, so this is what we have as our solution, and this is also going to mark the end of the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and ring the notification bell so that you're always going to be notified of when I upload a new video.